I'm coordinating the working group on rapid diagnostics to reduce antimicrobial resistance. We pull together 50 stakeholders across different sectors and from different countries to provide insight into the identification of barriers for development and implementation of rapid diagnostics.
What did it mean for the network and the research you have coordinated, having funds from JPIAMR?
Without that, it wouldn't have been possible. Yeah, so bringing people together in face-to-face meetings is really essential, and it motivates the people to participate, of course, much more as if there are no funds at all. So if you have to pay your phone travel, that's impossible. Then it creates a framework for setting up the network. So it's the funds, but it's not just the funds. It's the JPIAMR framework and overall network, which helps enormously with that. So identifying the countries and pulling people together under the big wing of JPIAMR is really a huge opportunity. So the outcome will be guidelines or publications which give help and guidance towards addressing these barriers and so forth. It is not a research project, but it's a networking, and it's an identification of ways forward, pathways. And roadmaps, and so we are working mainly on three areas. This is around the development pathway for rapid diagnostics. It is about the business models, and it is about behavioral change. So these three areas have been discussed, and in these areas we have identified various barriers and suggesting how to address those. One major aspect which we have been discussing is the absence of guidance in terms of how a diagnostic test should look like. So what does the end user need, and what do we develop to meet these needs? And we call them the diagnostics innovators, it is very difficult to come up with this idea. It takes time, and it takes a lot of resources in general to make these guidances. And the term for them is called target product profiles. And we give guidance how to develop those target product profiles and what should be the content of them. We're not setting the content, but we say what is it you should be asking. The major impact is what we're hoping is that development and implementation becomes easier, and that overall the structures are put in place so people can tap in and find guidance to meet their respective needs. So as a developer, you can go and ask, what is it we need to develop, and what's the pathway from here? For regulators to have an understanding what is possible in terms of developments of rapid diagnostics, what are the technologies, what are the criteria, what are the properties these have. So we always talk about how quick a test is. So 30 minutes is so-called, people consider this as the holy grail, 30 minutes rapid point-of-care testing. However, not everybody needs that. Some settings people have more time, others need faster tests. We all use the blood glucose monitoring for seconds for tests, so we don't have this. We are far away from seconds, but 30 minutes is something we may be able to reach. So providing a framework for different stakeholders to engage with to make the whole process easier and more impactful.
Right now we have kind of a multi-dimensional development of technology with digitalization, sensors, and so on. How does that affect the area of rapid diagnostics?
Very good question. It is not about technology. First of all, we have to be very careful not to have a technology push, but to have a market pull, or to understand the user first. Because if you think about the people who do diagnostic technology research and let's call it innovation, because at universities you can debate if innovation is done at universities or innovation is done after you implement it, but we need to find this balance. And of course, we have a huge portfolio of opportunities from the technology side. So big data, next generation sequencing, very single molecule detection, all these things we have. But we don't want to blindly push them into the field, and because they will not make, probably or most likely not make an impact if you do it that way. So, but what it can do is by describing them and making them public, and the user, the perceived end user, sees what are the opportunities and may say, okay, fine, now I have the possibility to understand the big genome of an organism, and I can do this in my setting. Then that creates a need. So we have this interplay. So educating about the needs, but also understanding the needs from a diagnostics innovator is really important.
How do you disseminate the results from the research you have done now?
The dissemination will be done through publications. So we have put together papers, research papers, but papers outcome from the program, and we will be mainly structuring them across the business models, development pathway, and behavioral change and target product profile. So this will be accessed in journals which are broadly read, so they are not just targeting a tiny part of the development community, but the user, the end user as well.
Where do you go from here now? Not traveling from Frankfurt, but with a network. How do you go forward?
I was just going to respond because I'm going from here to India to talk about diagnostics, and and because in India we have Indian partners in the network, and it is a huge issue, antimicrobial resistance in India. So the impact of the network, but also the discussion about rapid diagnosis in India will be quite important, and that touches on where we go from here with the network. So the idea is to sustain the network in a way to make use of the structure, the network structure which we have created, and the documents which we will produce. And the idea is to build on that, tapping into existing other structures, European or global structures. But we're still setting up developing the ways how we sustain it.